one of my favorite topics, and the reason why it's one of my favorites, and I think it needs to be talked about more and more and more by different speakers. Many speakers on this channel have spoken about this, and this is the British caste system. And I'm going to emphasize the word British caste
Yeah.
system, right? This caste system, which a lot of us, why our culture is always mocked by the outside, but also within,
Yes.
is because of a huge misconception, right? Um, but having said that, Samaj in some ways has imbibed the British caste system somewhere, and we need to go
Yeah.
back to what we know it as a Varna system, right? Which is our making, which is Sanatan Dharma, and the British caste system absolutely is not. So, how do you think we can work towards going towards the Varna system, which has its place in society, right? It really does. And we shouldn't just scrap it.
Yeah.
So, how do you work towards that?
Yeah, and that's such an important question, because caste has been weaponized so often, against Bharat and its people. I think it doesn't help anyone to have a reductionist argument of varnashram and caste system. So first of all, we need to understand what varnashram is, before we can make judgments. And I say varnashram because that is what the authentic meaning and expression is. It is not caste. Varna comes from the root vrin, which is very different from where caste comes from. Vrin is more related to a deep, sort of psychophysical nature of somebody, or qualities that somebody has. Whereas caste comes from the Portuguese word casta, which is very closely linked to sort of just birth and genetic heritage. So Varna is a lot deeper than that. It is, we spoke about Swadharma and how each individual needs to find their own strengths and weaknesses and work with them and adapt to them and use them appropriately. Um, a significant part of that is Varnashram. Uh, Varnas will denote your characteristics, your strengths, and your weaknesses of your personalities and your individualities. And you use those to inform what dharma means for you. Um, because of this connotation of the word kasta, it is assumed that, Varna, when you call it caste system, the automatic implication that comes is that it is based on birth. It is not based on birth. First of all, if taking on Varna was based just on birth, then we wouldn't need that the concept of dwija wouldn't exist. So we see, there's a very important aspect of our rituals where dwija is twice born. So your first birth is when you are, biologically born, and then your second birth is when you take initiation into your stream of knowledge, and you get born into your heritage once again, and that's where you actually take up that varna identity. And this happens for several varnas. So i- imagine if all you had to do to be of a certain varna was to be born into it, then you wouldn't need dvija in the first place. So that itself in practice tells us there is more than just birth, and in fact it may not be birth at all. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says guna karma vibhagasho to describe varna, which is there's guna and there's karma. So it is who you are and it is what you do, and an amalgamation of those, which is a reflection of your psychophysical nature, is what will define varna. It is not Krishna doesn't say your varna will be defined by who you are born to. There can be, of course, a genetic component to determining varna, or just a heritage based component, but that is a very small component. The larger, more important factors that you need to look at is your actual nature and is your actual strengths. And unfortunately, there's reductionism on both sides of the spectrum. There's one kind of reductionism that reduces Varna to that, oh, it's just based on birth, which is just not, not true at all. And there is another kind of reductionism that reduces it to, oh, karma is, Varna is just what you do. Like, I think there was a joke somewhere that, oh, my Varna is software because I'm a software engineer. That's not true as well. That's not true at all, in fact. What you do is just a manifestation of your Varna. And sometimes not even, how many of us, many of us are stuck in jobs that we are not good at and we don't like, right? So how can you say that is my Varna? Varna is, if you are a software engineer, then it is your analytical, detail oriented, and mathematical, logical mind that has enabled to do that. So as those qualities of your mind and intellect will determine your Varna, not the fact that you're a software engineer. You could be a software engineer with the same qualities. You could be an engineer at NASA. You could be a business analyst. You could be anything, but but the qualities remain the same, and it is those deep psychophysical qualities and nature and characteristics that determine what Varna is. So that distinction between Varna and caste and jati is another concept in the shastras completely, which effectively just refers to a category based on similarities. So and jati, the way we use it today, is more to do with our familial lineage. It's not it's not so much related to Varna. It's not so much related to your qualities, your strengths and your weaknesses, where we need to which is actually what we need to discover if we need to authentically discover our Varna. So that distinction is very important to make, and let's try and resist the impulse to have a very reductionist, simplistic argument about Varna, because it's not. Varna goes much deeper than just a surface level identity, and discovering Varna is a goal in itself. And the journey of discovering Varna is the goal in itself. um, because that is where that is your discovery of Prakriti, and that is effectively a large part of your Swadharma. Understanding, adapting to your Prakriti, understanding your Prakriti, and using that in a larger context. So it is it, for me, Varnashram is not at all controversial. Like, it seems so natural and so intuitive. When you actually read it from the right sources, and it's it's yeah. I didn't find it controversial. Not just controversial. I find it so. Oh yeah, this is kind of obvious. It seemed very natural and just very, of course, that's how it is. So whereas um, caste system, just I think intuitively everyone knows that it doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound natural. And it's not doesn't sound like something wise people would ascribe to, the way our caste system is. And we've had several wise people who have shaped our culture. um, so I don't yeah, I don't think it's we're definitely weaponizing it a lot more than it needs to be. We're making it a much bigger deal than it needs to be. um, and just and then things become so easy and so uh, they just become really simple to understand, once you actually get to the core of the matter. And it presents itself in simplicity in interaction as well. you know um, Varna is not a system of discrimination by any means. It is a system of it is honestly a system of just discovering yourself and using your strengths and weaknesses. So it's not a system by which you separate. It is a system of bringing you closer to your authentic self, and it is a system by which multiple different characteristics and personalities can coexist, because one Varna is not better or inherently superior than the other. they only have different strengths, and their different strengths lend themselves better to different tasks and maybe different different roles that they can take up in society, but certainly not at the cost of anyone else's personhood or without bringing down anyone else, irrespective of what varna they are. Yeah, so I think it's been weaponized and made something we're making it into a beast, and it's really not.
Yeah, I think we just need to go back to the simplicity of it. But I think one thing is, of course, with our civilization, people like to hold on to tradition, right?
Yes.
And when they consider what was a British caste system or is as their own, it's difficult to break through people's mindsets for them to understand actually it's not, because people have experienced firsthand, right? Different communities, or whether it's not really caste system, but they consider it as that they haven't been able to marry someone they wanted to because they're of a different caste, they would say, right? So there's a lot of breakthrough, and I think this topic needs to be talked about as much as possible, for people, for it to reach out to people to understand that there is a huge difference, and the British caste system is not our it's not part of our culture, it's
Yes.
not part of our tradition, right? So I think it's such an important topic. But beautifully said, with the Varna system, I feel there's so many young people also who are lost in life, and it would be such a help because, like you said, it's not to do with what you're born into. It's working out your purpose. It's to work out who you are, what your true nature is, right? And with that, working with that to manifest whatever you need to manifest in your life. And it's so essential, because if you're able to give whatever you are best at, then society will benefit.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's just so much misconception over that, and I wish soon we're able to break through that one.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.